beats. Am I weak? Rap now, cry later.
Have I just made it through?
Am I a chronic abuser? Trying to steal a limelight like Red and Meth stole a deucer. Without your pack of lies, or a pack of shooters. Just my wise guys in a pack of...
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the Adrenaline Rush podcast, now on the UWN Urban Wrestling Network. I am Mike Larkin, and joining me, as always, is my man, DC, and the place to be, Bay Hey B, Mr. Daniel Crimmins. Dan, as always, it's a pleasure, privilege. How are you?
I am very well, and yourself?
Dude, I cannot complain, because we got another topic for everyone today in regards to Impact, to TNA, a lot of spotlight showing for the history, the rich history of wrestling.
One of the most contentious names in professional wrestling history, at least as far as, Impact goes. Mm-hmm. That would be none other than Dixie Carter.
You see, I have a little mixed feelings on that, because we're going to talk about, what she did with TNA and what happened with the rebrands and stuff like that. But god dang, man, when you think of TNA, that's Dixie Carter right there, the TNA president. Her face is right there, and what a pretty face it is. I will say this: she's still as fine as wine, man. She's 57 now. My goodness.
Yeah, and honestly, I will say this about her just right off the bat. Kudos to her. Because you think of like the infamous names in professional wrestling, like the big owners, like you've got, your Vince McMahons, your Ted Turners, your Paul Heymans, your Eric Bischoffs, your Jim Crockett's. Professional wrestling, at least big name professional wrestling, has primarily always been, a very male dominated industry. I mean, and yeah, we've had, like Women of Wrestling, Shimmer, Glow, things like that, But I mean, like mainstream that, you can turn on network television and see.
That's my thing, too. And you actually brought up that's something that's very cool, because with today's day and age, we now found out with WoW being relaunched. I mean, how cool is that we have AJ Lee being involved as an executive producer? We have, everything that's going back into that promotion, headed by David McLean, the man behind the original Glow. Like, how cool is that, man, that we get to see AJ back in her forefront doing her thing as executive producer?
Now, I think that's great, but
Good.
in the ointment is that person that we won't mention.
Yeah. You all know who we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not going to say her name. I'm somebody who has an insane amount of talent, but, it's considering she's not in any of the big name organizations, maybe there's something to that.
Yeah. This person who we're not going to mention, because y'all know who we're talking about, she's been on WoW since its relaunch and doing its thing on Access TV. And I mean, it's one of those things where, yes, she's done some training roles and done stuff like that, but I think that really is a testament to professional wrestling nowadays, man. It doesn't matter the talent. If you got an attitude, you know what I'm saying? You got to check that shit out the door.
And, if you really don't know who we're talking about, well, let's just say her dad is a manager for AEW, manages FTR.
Exactly. There you go. There's a big hint, if not a spoiler, for who we're talking about. But on the plus side, who we are talking about, Dan, going back to Dixie Carter, it's funny because I remember seeing her at a live events, and we'll also compare her to Tony Khan here in 2 seconds. See her at live events, she's always very vibrant, she's very loud, she's with the people, and you love to see that.
Exactly.
As a president, as an owner, this is where the Tony Khan thing comes in. She was a money mark. She was an absolute money mark. We're going to sign the biggest names. We're going to bring in Hulk Hogan. We're going to bring in all these people that are ex-WWE. And we spend that money.
And it worked for a while.
It did. It absolutely did.
Now, I will say this. For those that don't know, I'm from a very small area in upstate New York. we have a really small arena. It's maybe 5K, maybe, and Impact TNA, whatever you want to call them these days, ran there a handful of times. The one time that I went, and I couldn't tell you what the card was, you know, but what I can tell you, Dixie Carter walked the crowd. She was in the crowd talking to people. And I remember seeing, she asked, are you having a good time? What do you think of the show? And to me, that stands out, that, similar to Tony Khan, you have people that care that your fans are having a good time. I mean, because I don't know about you, I have been to WWE shows, where some live events have been absolutely great. Others have been, garbage.
For me, I look at it from a stance too. So the year that I went to see it live, where she was there around the crowd too as well, was in Westbury, Long Island. That was probably around 2008, and then they came back in 2010. Man, it was night and day because the talents that were there who are not there now. And as far as that time period, like we were talking about 2010, man, she just brought in Hulk Hogan. They moved to Monday nights, and they were not long going head-to-head with Raw in 2010. I'm going to say right now, they were not ready for it because they got their asses spanked in 2000.
Because, and this is what gets me, with Dixie. Again, I think she's a class act. I think she's a really amazing person. She's appeared on WWE programming, not on television, but she's done a couple things on the network.
Yeah, she was in that Jeff Jarrett 24 that they did the documentary.
She did that. There was something for Kurt Angle she did, something for AJ that she did. I think she even did something for Drake Maverick.
Oh, yes, because they were talking about Spud's career and Drake Maverick to where he is. And it makes sense because of the role that they had, which I'm going to say right now, if nobody has seen it, her and Rockstar Spud as her assistant is hilarious.
It is. Like, honestly, you can tell in the beginning, like, she was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because she's not an actress. She's not, a wrestler or, anything like that. She's, she's a businesswoman.
I mean, if you want to talk about uncomfortable, Dan, we can always go down to Claire Lynch territory where it was supposed to be like they thought AJ was sleeping with Dixie and they were making up the lie, the whole thing with Daniels and Kazarian, and that woman came, I'm an addict, and it was just so bad. Remember that bullshit?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
It happened. It happened.
Well, it did, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, like a lot of things in professional wrestling, but no. And what I also like about Dixie, too, is going back to the network and stuff. Like, what's great to have that access to show their careers, what WWE does, we get to focus on TNA, Impact Wrestling, because that was where a bulk of their career came from. And Dixie Carter, like we've talked about, who was always there when one of her former talents gets signed to WWE, and who's the first to congratulate him? Dixie, because she supports talent through thick and thin, and you love to see that.
Yeah, and, I think, she was somebody who, I think she came in when it was it Panda Energy?
Panda Energy, yep. Bob and Janice Carter, yep.
When her parents or her father bought out TNA Wrestling.
TNA Wrestling, yep.
I think they bought interest from Jerry Jarrett, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that was from Jerry Jarrett around that time period. Yep, you're correct.
And they needed somebody from the Carter family to run it, and and came Dixie Carter. And she's admitted at the time she really didn't know a whole lot about the wrestling business. The sad thing, I don't think she necessarily had the best advising her, at least from an outsider's perspective. I think when you look at it, bringing in Eric Bischoff, bringing in Hulk Hogan, in my opinion, that is money that could have been better spent elsewhere.
Yeah, that's the thing too, because going back to what you were saying, it's like around the time period when Hogan came in. And I mean, you hear Christopher Daniels and Kazarian, they did a shoot back in like 2014 when they got released. It's like, I wasn't seeing money, but we're going out here doing stuff for the Red Cross. And Christopher Daniels like, I'm not bad mouthing the Red Cross, but it's like, I'm missing some money out of my paycheck, or I'm not getting paid. Who's not getting paid? It's like, it's nice you want to do something for the Red Cross, but it's like, how about you pay your talent? And it's Christmas time. So, I mean, it's justifiable with what he's saying there.
Oh, very much so. And like, you have talent that was struggling, and yet Hogan, they didn't really move the needle much. And like there were things that happened in the Bischoff Hogan administration, as I like to consider it, that to me was not what Impact could have and should have been.
No, and the thing is too, you also have the changes, man. Because what really made them stood out was the six-sided ring, because you saw none of it. AAA, yes, but stateside, you didn't see none of that. And then Hogan comes in and it's back to four sides, and there's what's special about that,
Hogan hated it.
Hogan hated it, and I mean, AJ has talked about on the Stone Cold podcast, AJ Styles, how it hurt like a motherfucker, and it was difficult to do stuff in that ring, and it hurt. But at the same time, it's what stood out with the product.
Yeah, because he said, and I remember him saying it was, American wrestling fans, the average wrestling fan, had never seen anything like that. Somebody like you or me, who may have seen other promotions, we know that there has been a six-sided ring.
Mm-hmm.
But, you need something that would appeal to your casual wrestling fan who's, or your average viewer who maybe, it's one day just, turning channels, changing the channels with the clicker. And then they see this weird shaped wrestling. And they stop and they think, well, what the heck is that? But it was what was unique to them. And I think promises were probably made to Dixie Carter. And I don't think that's her fault. Like, I think, she was just looking for ideas, to how to get it going. And I think the internet was unfairly critical of her.
See, I would also like to agree with that, because I know people will say what they will about Dixie Carter, but I'm like, Dixie Carter gave us, I mean, when you think of the golden age of Impact, we had our Styles, our Daniels, and Joe. That was when she was at the forefront, and her and Jeff Jarrett were doing their thing. And we got Kurt Angle. But god dang, man, I remember starting out. Now, the first time I ever saw Impact was, like, it came out on 2004, right? Like, the show. I remember watching it. You remember Fox Sports Net had it at, like, Fridays at, like, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and then it moved to, like, 4, and then it was off of that, and then it was on the internet for a little bit before they got to Spike. Do you remember that time period?
Yeah, and if I remember right, Fox Sports Net, I think it was even on Fox Sports 1 for, like, a very brief time.
Yeah, that was the that was
and
when
it was on Saturdays. Like, it was on at like 8:00 on a Saturday night, which is a horrible time slot.
It was terrible.
Like, who is gonna sit at home on a Saturday night at 8:00 and watch wrestling?
The diehard fan base, the diehards.
Maybe in the winter months, us, East Coasters, that we know once that snow falls,
we don't go. We ain't going nowhere. So yeah, sure, we'll stay in and watch Impact Wrestling on Saturday night at 8. But dude, that was the thing too. Even in the later years when they were doing the Twitch stuff, like for a brief time before they got onto Access, and I used to joke about this, they were on the Pursuit Network, which nobody ever heard of the Pursuit Network. It's an outdoor channel that Anthem owns. And all that's on there was like Jimmy Houston and wilderness shows. And I know, Chef, you love you some Jimmy Houston, baby, but still, you're on that network at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday, right after SmackDown. Oh,
yep.
Brutal.
And then there was Destination America, which
yeah, Destination America with the Bigfoot show. Yep.
I think now is owned by Discovery Channel.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So again, it's one of those things that it could have been. It was what it was. I hate to use that phrase, but as Dudley Rhodes would say, it is what it is,
baby. But yeah, no, it's very true. And I mean, looking from what her tenure is, I mean, one of the great things that we did get, if you remember Bound for Glory 2013, the debut of EC3 against Nora Furnham, who would later go on to be Peter Avalon in AEW. Man, it gave us EC3 as the nephew, the rich, spoiled nephew of Dixie Carter. I mean, it gave us EC3 where he was as Derek Bateman in WWE to where he became EC3. Night and day, Dan.
Oh yeah, gave him a chance, gave him a name.
And for me, like that character fit him so well because in WWE, he was doing the whole chicks in America thing with Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, and everything that was encompassed with NXT. And he's goofy, but here it's like he's got a new haircut, he's chiseled, he looks great, and he became top stars. You could not miss an EC3 segment. That trouble. Like it brought in new stars, and her regime as well gave us a lot of great talents coming in. I mean, with the Hogan era, going back to that, I mean, we got fucking Ken Anderson off the Australian tour. We got Orlando Jordan. We got the Nasty Boys, which friggin' Brian Knobbs looked like he was about to have a heart attack during that run. But I mean, it gave us some good, it gave us some bad. But when you think about that.
When you talk about the bad, because
yeah.
You can't have the good without the bad.
Of course.
There is one thing that at least I can't forgive Dixie Carter for. And Chef, I know you'll at least I hope you'd agree with me on this.
Yes.
It gave us members of the Jersey Shore.
Okay, so for those who have never seen it, or we're taking a trip back memory lane, we got Robbie E, who is now Robert Stone on WWE on NXT. Robbie E and Cookie, who was Becky Bayless, a Northeast independent wrestling talent, who was also on. Dude, remember Wrestlelicious? Which was very. Remember Wrestlelicious?
Yeah.
She was Brooklyn on that show at that time. They come in, it's Robbie E and Cookie, and they brought in, because WWE had Snooki do that WrestleMania match, they brought in JWoww. They brought in
WrestleMania match of all time.
Oh my God, and Angelina, and they brought in Ronnie. Friggin', they brought in the others. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to because WWE had Snooki. Well, also we got Sharmell and Jonah Maraska, which is one of the worst pay-per-view matches ever. Which don't get me started on that.
And I can't forgive her for that.
Well, why would you want to forgive her for that, man? I mean, you understand it. The Jersey Shore is popular. It's one of the hottest shows at that time. But still, no. No, you know what I'm saying? I mean, as Italians, Dan, and as New Yorkers and as East Coasters, it makes us look bad, man.
But you know what? I will say it did bring in some of the greatest storylines they've had.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Aces and Eights storyline.
Yes, which I know a lot of people will crap on, but there was some legworm to it until the Bully Ray stuff. That was the reveal, and then, it gave us friggin' Mr. Anderson turning heel for no goddamn reason. If you can't beat him, join him. It gave us Gallows. It gave us friggin' Mike Knox's Nux. I mean, hey, there was some good and bad. D'Lo Brown is the executive vice president of the Isis and Eights.
And, Devon is a heel, which,
Well, I mean, they tried that in WWE was as the Reverend, but that didn't work. But TNA, they got it to work.
Oh, yeah. But you know what? It worked.
And that was the thing, too, man, because, I mean, when you have the thing like Sons of Anarchy, and again, in popular culture really encompassing at this time, it worked. I mean, it was something different for TNA around this time period.
Yeah. And a lot of people shit on it. But for me, I enjoyed the Aces and Eights storyline overall.
I mean, they've done worse. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, like, do you remember, because Tony Khan with that subtle shot friggin' about SmackDown next week, the Impact did do some subtle shots. Remember Dumb to the Extreme, where we had everybody that was backstage from WWE there? Rey Mysterio was there, and then, let's get some Mahi friggin' BG James, Road Dogg. Like, they encompassed that. They put that video out, and they were making fun of the WWE guys who were there in Orlando around that time, being backstage, hanging out with the TNA guys. I mean, they VKM, Voodoo Ken Mafia, which I'll ask you about that because this was around Dixie Carter's time too. What did you think about their bring back DX, and then that same year we get the Voodoo Ken Mafia?
And you listen to him now. You listen to Kip James or Kip Saab, Billy Gunn, whatever name he's going by these days.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I think of VKM.
Okay, I look at it from the stance too. They had something, man. They were going to the arenas, they were going to the house shows, trying to get something. But at the same time, it's like y'all are both screwed up. Y'all need some help, and you were doing the thing as the James Gang, and then now you're the VKM, the Voodoo Ken Mafia, because we know what you're doing. You're dressing like Shawn, you're dressing like Triple H. But it's like, guys, it's not 1998 anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's 2006.
I mean, you listen to. I remember a while back there was an interview with Triple H.
Triple H, as William Regal would say, Triple H.
And he even said, they knew that some of the stuff they were doing as DX back in the day wasn't going to work now.
I mean, with today's social climate, Dan, nothing of that stuff worked out.
And VKM was, trying to do the same old stupid shtick. And later on, you would hear like both of them, Kip James and little Roddy, aka Road Dog, with his Baby Tonight.
Okay, that song will still always be badass. I don't care what anybody says. I love that song.
Dude, I agree with you. I love that song. I'm not gonna lie, it is on my playlist. When I get in the car every day, I don't care. I will sing along to that song till the cows come home.
Spend my days working hard on the go when the hand on the clock keeps swinging too slow because I can't wait to get along with my. All right, goddamn.
They will both admit that they took they took shots at Triple H,
Shawn.
and they weren't in the best shape. They weren't in the best place mentally.
No, not at all. Not at all. And
now, to bring it back to Dixie,
mm-hmm.
When you look at some of the other owners, you're look at Vince, Heyman, and Bischoff. They've all taken spots in the ring.
Yes.
You have Dixie Carter, who has never trained in the ring.
Oh my God, I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Took a damn power bomb through a table. I mean, granted, Bully Ray took the worst of it.
Yes, he protected her as much as he could.
But still, dude, there's only so much protection of that you can give your opponent. Like, she was going to take some of that fall, and I can guarantee that probably did not feel that good.
No, she's admitted it ever since that happened that it did not feel good. She was in a lot of pain.
But you know what? That earned my respect. That earned a hell of a lot of respect because I look at that and I think, wow, she didn't have to do that.
I mean,
that whole storyline of Bully Ray trying to get her.
Yes.
As a fan, she had and as a businesswoman, she had the wherewithal to know that she was a polarizing thing.
But dude, this is 2014 as well. She was the bitchiest of bitches. This is Dixieland time period. Dude, if you remember the episode, she had King Mo as the enforcer. I mean, this is also around the time when they brought in Snitsky and all these guys for one-offs and Ezekiel Jackson. But at the same time,
former ECW heavyweight champion.
The last one under the WWE regime, beating Christian, fucking Uranagi through the tables. Why you got to remind me of that, Dan? Why you got to remind me?
Probably one of the most forgettable reigns as Intercontinental Champion.
Okay, well, dude, he looked like Ahmed Johnson. No joke. He could have been Ahmed Johnson's little brother.
He was a muscled-up guy. He was big. He was a Vince McMahon light.
Yes, I can absolutely see that. Going back to Bully Ray, that was the great story about it, like you mentioned. The whole night, it's I gotta get her. And then he power bombs her, and it's the most frightening I've ever been for someone in my life. But goddamn, she took that like a champ, but it hurt in the process. Vince can take a stunner. Paul Heyman can take whatever. Eric Bischoff can take whatever. But Dixie Carter taking that power bomb for the story and just for her getting her ass worked. It worked.
It was great. The whole storyline. I think it went on for a month or 2 months or whatever.
Yeah, because that was that they did EC3 and Bully Ray. So yeah, that worked for her.
Bully Ray just kept trying to get her. And I remember he had a table spray painted Dixie.
Mm-hmm.
There was one for EC3. I think Rockstar Spud had one. And I remember they brought in like all the ECW guys. Like they had, Devon, Dreamer,
Snitsky, Ezekiel Jackson, like we mentioned.
Like, if I remember right, and maybe I'm wrong. I think they brought in Sabu for an episode.
I don't know if it was that year, but I do remember Sabu being in there. I know they brought in Tajiri. Tajiri was around that time too. But I don't think that was with that. I think that was with the other one with the Great Sonata. But yeah, no. They did a lot of stuff in 2014.
And and then she, to see her go through that table,
mm-hmm.
and then Bully Ray just to have that expression. And it was the same expression as when he used to powerbomb Mae Young through a freaking table.
That euphoric trance, as JR would say. That euphoric trance.
That just staring off into like nowhere. That's it. That's the look. Great. Absolutely great. Loved it. And people, Mae Young, yeah, she was older, but she was a wreck. Anybody, people that Bully Ray has worked with, putting through tables, were wrestlers. Dixie Carter, not a wrestler.
Not a wrestler.
But, and you could see as her character evolved, her comfort got bigger.
I mean, I look at it from a stance too. Like, there's a lot of owners that just will stay in the back, won't be put on TV except for like special occasions. But her, like, what she did with the Dixieland character, making fun of Eric Young after he won the world title the same week as Daniel Bryan, taking all these shots. She was great as that heel. And, Madam Dixieland, baby, and her just doing her thing. For me, like, I remember 2015. Like, I mean, this was her as a babyface now, but the year after we're discussing this with her going through the table, we had the GFW versus TNA storyline, which the GFW guys that they had were like Justin Gabriel, PJ Black, Chris Mordetsky, Chris Masters. They had friggin' Trevor Lee, who was now in WWE's Cameron Grimes, and Brian Myers. We had Trevor Lee and Brian Myers as the tag champs for like 2 weeks. And the guys that they brought in, man, it was just like, okay. But that was the GFW roster at the time because it was just something new that Jeff Jarrett was starting.
Tried
to start. Yes.
I think it also gave us Brian Cage and I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Oh my God.
LA right now.
Oh, Eli Drake.
So again, she was able to bring in some really solid talent.
Well, the thing too is Eli Drake, when he came in, he was with Drew McIntyre and Micah, who was Tongaloa and New Japan now, former Camacho. I mean, they were part of the was it the Ryzin or something like that? For those that remember that time period. Then he got big with the dummy, yeah, and then he took off. I mean, it's one of those things where we saw the earliest fronts and the start of their character during the Dixie era, and then obviously we had the Jeff Jarrett era, and then the Billy Corgan era. Like everything, my God, man, it's just that particular time period for me it's one of those things where like you had the Naturals, AMW.
Yep.
We had Triple X, we had the Motor City Machine Guns, we had so many tag teams.
Main Event Mafia.
Main Event Mafia, like we'll be here all day. Like Scott Steiner. Good.
We had the Main Event Mafia twice.
We don't talk about the second reign because we don't want to talk about Rampage Jackson and fucking Tito Ortiz and the freaking aces and eights. I don't want to remember that, Dan.
And then King Mo, who, did he ever actually wrestle? Like, I remember them like booking matches for him, and like they just never happened. Like, did they happen?
He was in MLW. I mean, no, he's doing his thing in MLW and he wrestles. But as far as TNA goes, the only appearance I remember was him being Dixie's heavy. And again, in that night where she got powerbombed. But I mean, someone could correct me, but I do remember King Mo being there, but he never wrestled. Not to my knowledge, he never wrestled. I think he was. Well, they used OVW as developmental, so I think he was in OVW for a little bit.
Yeah. I think they tried to, and it just never happened. It's
there were so many changes in that regime, dude. I mean, her era, we also had where Kurt Angle was with Karen Jarrett and Karen Angle, and then the whole thing with Angle and Jarrett that just escalated. This is right before Hogan came in, and there was a lot
personal. That got real personal, and to her credit, and Jeff Jarrett will even tell you, Dixie Carter handled that perfectly. Because that's a horrible situation. You have your owner who is involved in a relationship with, I think Kurt was the world champion at the time.
Yes, he was.
And Kurt will admit he wasn't, in the best, place then. Mm-hmm. But you have Jarrett who's in a relationship with his world champion's then wife.
See, here's the thing. Like, Jill passed away in 2007, and so he had lost his wife, and then about a year or two later, here he is now with Karen, and I'm just like, man, it reminded me of Benoit and Kevin Sullivan. Exactly what it was. It was Benoit and Kevin Sullivan all over again.
But we won't say that name.
I know. I'm sorry, but we're going to bring it up really quickly there. Beep, boop, and Kevin Sullivan. Or also you can look at it. I mean, people talk about Batista and Molina, and Johnny Nitro was very similar to the Chris Candido handling with Sonny, God rest his soul. But yeah, there's a lot of that you see in professional wrestling. I mean, that's the ugly side right there.
Yeah, the dark side of the ring.
The dark side of the ring, which...
To coin term.
Yes?
I can't take credit for that.
Well, speaking of Dark Side of the Ring, I'll mention it very quickly. For those who have not seen the Johnny K9 story yet, holy hell. I'm going to start now. Holy hell. You think of professional wrestling, fucking Johnny K.
No, I had
K9 is
no
out of his
clue.
friggin' mind.
No, I had no clue who this guy was.
I didn't even know him under a Smoky Mountain name. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never heard of this guy in my life.
But I figured, he was just, some guy. And then, I remember watching it last night. I remember watching it just thinking, I can't tell you how many times I just kept saying, oh, my God.
Right?
Oh, my God.
Because he's fucking insane. He's fucking smashing a beer bottle, and it's not even breaking over his head. It's the chair shots. It's the shots to the head, Dan. It's the shots to the head.
Not only that, but at the same time that this guy is, competing, he's in an outlaw motorcycle club.
Well, look at Dino Bravo. Dino Bravo was wrestling, and then he's fucking doing, mafia type shit.
And, dude, Johnny K9 was doing the same thing.
Pretty much. Fucking bombing police stations when he went to do it at the strip club. Oh, my God. It's fucking nuts.
And then he ratted on himself.
He legit ratted on himself and then got kicked out of the damn biker club. Oh, my God.
The thing is now, if you look at somebody like Johnny K9, he'd probably be a huge star now. Like, if he was around in this day and age...
Oh, he'd be at the top of the card. He
would be in WWE on Raw, or SmackDown, or, NXT 5.0.
5.0. Yeah, man. If he came around not in the 80s when he was just doing the enhancement roles and Smoky Mountain time, he would be a big star now. But unfortunately, it was the thing of life and crime. He couldn't, surpass real. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's a balance. You couldn't balance wrestling and crime. He went back to crime as much as he didn't want to. You know what I'm saying? It's tragic. But yeah, without any more spoilers, go check out the Dark Side of the Ring because I can.
It's like that classic line from The Godfather Part 3, where Michael Corleone, you can tell he's upset and he just says, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Yep.
And folks, if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Go watch it.
Season, every season they have done just gets more and more insane.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next episode, we'll touch on this briefly. I believe the next episode is on XPW.
Rob Black's promotion, friggin' XPW versus ECW, the whole nine there, which a lot of those guys were on Wrestling Society X, who we're actually going to see. We're going to see Chaos, who was married to Jezebel Romo, the owner of Santino Brothers Academy in California. it's going to be interesting to see him talk about those crazy times. And yeah, because a lot of that XPW roster was on the WSX roster.
Yep. And I think you said Rob Black. I think he briefly own Ring of Honor at one point?
Oh, that was Feinstein. Oh.
Rob Feinstein, yeah, that's it.
We don't say that name either. Fucking RF video. Oh fuck! Don't get me started on Rob Feinstein.
Yeah, that's another name. There's a lot of names we don't talk about.
There's a lot of names we don't. It's just, and unfortunately, that's the dark side, the ugly side, if you will, of the professional wrestling.
But every so often, there's a lot of darkness in the wrestling industry. A lot of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially with TNA. And I don't mean to cut you off, but going back to Dixie Carter, it's like we were talking about Kurt Angle, that whole thing. The fucking DUIs he's had, friggin' in TNA, it's just absolutely insane. The stuff that when he was with Raka Khan at the time, oh my god, poor Kurt. But still, Kurt was out of his mind.
And let's not forget the Victory Road incident with Brother Nero.
Brother Nero, yeah. That was still under that auspice too, yeah. Fucking poor Jeff Hardy. That still breaks my heart every time I see it, and it's friggin' 10 years after the fact.
And like I said, a lot of darkness in the wrestling industry, but and there's so many vendettas. Like there's, you'll see interviews with Bischoff, and I think he still probably harbors some grudges against, certain people that he's worked with. And I think we've all heard some of the comments he's made about certain people. We know how Vince feels about certain people.
Mm-hmm.
Randy Savage.
Well, first of all, hold on. We got Randy Savage, God rest his soul, in TNA, as they like to call it, the gingerly knee at TNA Turning Point. Oh, poor Randy. That gingerly knee onto Jeff Jarrett for the pin. We did get some Randy Savage though.
And we do have. There is, to me, there is some light in professional wrestling. You look at Dixie Carter. Maybe it's just the stereotypical sweet Southern lady.
Southern Belle, y'all.
But I have not seen her be negative about anybody.
No, and that's the crazy part too, is because she's such a very nice and professional, well-spoken woman, and people can say all this, like we were talking about Money Mark, or she didn't know a clue about the wrestling business, but she's like, you know what? I did what I had to do. And she's just straight up like, yeah.
And she has admitted that she made mistakes.
Mm-hmm. And
I
will be
honest. I think not using Dixie Carter is a mistake.
You know what?
Hear me out.
Okay.
I think bring her in as a manager. Put her with. You could put her with anybody. She could be the face manager, but she could also be kind of like a heelish manager. The overly nice, kind of sweet Southern lady. Oh, bless your heart.
Yes. Okay. All right. I would love to see that.
You live in the South. I think that's a Southern thing.
That is very much a Southern thing. Bless your heart.
Yeah. We don't do that in New York. You know that. We
don't
do that.
No, I've been in New York for pretty much practically all my life. There is no New Yorker that will say "bless your heart."
Our version of "bless your heart" is this.
Yep, there you go.
Right there.
Fucking Dan just putting up the middle finger. Okay, so as a manager, yes. Well, technically speaking, we did get that because she was with EC3 and she could play that heel role. So that's the thing, and people don't realize, like, another thing I'll mention with the talents, because we had tag teams, the X division, we'll be here all day with the Knockouts division. But for me, like, I always loved the alpha male Monty Brown, and he was big under the TNA auspices.
Oh yeah.
The fact that he never got a world title, and he was pushed to the moon.
The moon.
Like Cameron Grimes would say. The fact that he never got a world title, and he was such a prime factor in where we are now in the world of Impact Wrestling and the almost 20-year launch in the 20 fucking history of Impact. It's crazy that guy never got the just due.
If you recall, he left I think if I remember right,
Yep.
he was supposed to be the TNA champion at one point, but he had left to go to WWE,
Mhm.
and he was in the ECW 2.0,
Yes.
and he had. I know there was, if I remember right, there was something with his family. I think like his sister had passed away, and he was taking care of his sister's kids.
Yes.
So of course he retired.
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing to do. I mean, when you had family responsibilities at the time. And also, yeah, like I think they were originally going to give it to him at Final Resolution 05 when he fought Jarrett. This was the month after the Savage stuff. And then they turned him heel. And then it just was, it was Monty Brown doing his heel thing with the pounds, period. 2006, he wrestled Christian Cage at Destination X for the title, and then he lost. And then he would go on to WWE as Marcus Corvon, which is so funny because you remember Cassidy Riley from TNA?
Yeah.
That was his debut opponent on ECW. It was like a TNA reunion. Marcus Corvon against Cassidy Riley. That was his debut opponent on the ECW, WCW brand.
And you know what?
He can say he wrestled WrestleMania, man. He can.
Bonnie Brown was one of those guys that, like, I look at him and I just think, this guy had it. He had, that it factor. It's, you always talk about that untangible it factor. He had that it factor. Kurt Angle has that it factor. You look at, people in Impact now. Ethan Page,
is doing his thing in AEW. He's really doing his thing.
Again, he was a missed opportunity in Impact. They should have fought more to keep him.
Well, you also got Josh Alexander there now, his former tag partner in the North, and he's absolutely on fire. I mean, he's facing Christian at Bound for Glory. So, I mean, you have stars.
I would not be shocked if he takes it.
I mean, it's Christian. I mean, he'll put over young talent. I mean, for God's sake, man. If he doesn't beat Christian, how hot of a streak that the Walking Weapon's been on, it's a crime. It's like, okay, I'll do you. It's like in 2011 when we had Kurt Angle and Bobby Roode at Bound for Glory, and Bobby Roode did not beat Kurt Angle because everybody wanted Bobby Roode to win. He was hot. Here it was. But then he finally wins it off of James Storm, and then he turns heel. They went the opposite direction with that.
But you know what? That worked.
And it did, because you're stabbing your friend in the back, the beer bottle to the face, and that set up the it factor, you know what I'm saying? High off the chain, going against the grain, and Bobby Roode.
And you know what? That whole Bobby Roode versus James Storm feud, that was there's one word to describe that feud. And it was glorious.
See, people hated that with glorious stuff, but you cannot go wrong with the glorious era. And how funny would it have been if Shinsuke Nakamura actually got that instead of Bobby Roode, because that was originally going to be Nakamura's theme.
You know what? Again, like, you look at it this way. Some themes don't go with the person that, they were originally intended to. Real American is a little bit of trivia. I don't know if people know. Real American by Rick Derringer was not initially meant for Hulk Hogan.
Okay, so
there was another team that it was meant for, and I can't remember who it was.
Okay, so I'll tell you this. So my dad has told me this so many times, and this is why it sticks out, because my dad's been watching wrestling for like 50 years. So it was the U.S. Express, friggin' micro. Yeah.
And the father of that guy, I can't remember the guy's name, but he had the whole world in his hand. I can't remember his name.
Oh, of course. You mean Wyndham Rotunda, Bray Wyatt?
I wonder what ever happened to that guy.
I don't know, man. Let's see what happens with that guy. I mean, he did.
That guy's a real fiend. I'll tell you that much.
I'll tell you that. Yeah, man.
I think that whole, feud with Roode and Storm was great. They could have done so much more with it.
And that went on for a while too. Like, they had their stops and starts, but I think it culminated in 2013, and it worked because it was just those two together. Also, you forgot. Hold on, I don't mean to cut you off, but you forgot one theme as well, the infamous one, 2006. Randy Orton had "This Fire Burns" for a week, and then they put it on CM Punk.
And you know why? Because Randy Orton hated
that song. And it didn't fit at all. Like, you had him with the burn in my light, and then you put that on. I even remember watching the bout, man. It was him and Super Crazy on SmackDown, and I'm like, this doesn't fit at all. Doesn't fit Randy Orton.
I remember seeing an interview with Orton talking about it, and he said he absolutely hated it.
I would too.
He actually told Kevin, I think it was Kevin Dunn, he wouldn't use it.
No.
And it worked for Punk at that time.
And also, that's his style, man. Look at how Punk, his imagery and how he portrays himself. It would work for him.
And, you look at TNA, like Dixie Carter bringing in Dale Oliver to do the themes.
Yep.
Bro, he made some classics, some real bangers.
We talked about it last week, Abyss.
Yeah. That, the Aces and Eights theme, to me, and if I remember right, I think her husband, Serge Salinas.
Yep.
I believe he also, produced a couple of them.
Exactly. Like, he was so talented. I think the only time, do you remember the one time we only saw him on TV?
Yeah.
Fucking Styles. Oh, that was funny. But no, like, that's the thing.
And it's amazing to me. Like, we talk about progression of, different wrestlers. Like AJ Styles, we talked about him in the past. We've talked about, Christopher Park, aka Abyss. We talked about him last week, and Christopher Daniels and all these people. And I will say this: I think Dixie Carter deserves a hell of a lot more respect than what she gets.
That's the thing, too. And a lot of people forget about that because some of the best times, like we mentioned before, in TNA history was the Dixie Carter regime. And the thing, too, is, I mean, we did go from networks. We talked about going from Spike TV to Destination America to this, to Pop, to Poppity Pop 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 TV. But no, man, it's one of those things where it's just like you think of that era from 2005 to where she was before, she got out, and then the whole thing with Billy Corgan coming in and Jeff Jarrett at GFW and the different incarnations. Scott D'Amore and Don Callis. Now it's Scott D'Amore. It's amazing just to think of the crop of talents that we've got who have moved on to other companies, but are the benchmark and on the Mount Rushmore, so to speak, of TNA Impact Wrestling.
Exactly. And again, like I said earlier, you see interviews with people that were involved in TNA. Your Joes, your Christopher Daniels, your
Christians.
Your Christians, all these people that knew Dixie Carter and said, she was surrounded by the wrong people that were only in it for their own self-preservation.
Right.
And you have people saying, "This is what we do. This is what we do." Bringing Bishop and Hogan, it'll work. It didn't move the needle, maybe just a little bit.
And that's the thing when you're looking at ratings, like. It's one of those things where Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy, it's great to see them, but you bring them in, they bring in Jeff Hardy and Rob Van Dam like a tag team, and I'm like, why are you bringing them in as a tag team? Like, just let them do their solo shit,
Now, what I will say, and a lot of fans have forgotten about this.
All right.
There was an opportunity for them to bring in a guy, and let's just say that, ladies and gentlemen, his name is Paul Heyman.
And they turned it down, or he turned it down, and they were going to try to work some stuff, but he said, "No, not going to do it."
Because if I remember right, Bischoff was still involved with TNA at that point.
Oh, yeah. I hate each other.
Bischoff and Heyman still legit do not like each other.
I mean, rightfully so. I mean, he had a grievance from his WCW tenure, and, I mean, we saw that in the ECW comeback in 2005. So, I mean, hey.
I think had Paul Heyman gone to TNA, I think we'd be having a very different conversation today.
Now, absolutely. If you brought in a guy like Paul Heyman to come in and be behind the book and present his ideas and his creativity, I mean, as a mad evil genius in his own right, yeah, we'd be talking about a different company than what we're talking about right now.
Like, I think it's a fair assumption to think that, again, this is a fantasy booker in me, and I know, as wrestling fans, we always like to think, what if? Mm-hmm. I think if Dixie Carter was able to land Paul Heyman, I'm not sure we would be having AEW right now. You know, I'm not sure, because I think with Paul Heyman, we would have gotten a better network deal. You know, I think, maybe Joe and AJ, maybe they wouldn't have left. Maybe they wouldn't have, maybe they would have stayed.
It's crazy. It really is. Like you had Joe. Well, obviously they left, and you see, here's the thing with AJ. We'll go to AJ for a second here. Segue. AJ Styles, when he left TNA, I remember, and he said in many interviews, he did not want to. He didn't want the pay cut. He's like, "You're gonna cut my pay? What are you talking about? I've been in here since day one. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?" And then he would go on to New Japan. He'd do Ring of Honor, and then we'd see him Royal Rumble 2016. So, I mean, like, AJ's like, I'm not going to take a pay cut. Jeff Jarrett's like, I'm not going to take a pay cut. You know what? Fuck this. And then we talked about GFW. But it was at that time period. It's like, man, you want to give AJ Styles a pay cut? I don't blame him for feeling the way he did. The blood, sweat, and tears he put in for that company for like 20
Exactly. And again, like, you have people, in Dixie Carter's ear telling her, this is what you do. This is what you do. Oh, you don't need them. Oh, he's not worth that much. Get the hell out of here.
I know. And well, I mean, when you friggin' bring in, and I will say this about AJ Styles, and I still hated it to this day. I know putting him with Ric Flair and him being like the new Nature Boy, I hated it so much because there's no other Nature Boy, and we're not making
exactly. Actually,
all right.
There was Buddy Rogers.
Yes, okay, but I'm saying we're talking about Ric Flair. I'm not talking about I know the original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers. But dude, like with Ric Flair and making that whole thing, he's not Ric Flair's protege.
No.
It didn't work.
And you can tell that AJ wasn't comfortable doing it. Like, that's not him.
No.
He's not, that guy. Like, he's not, your Ric Flair type. The bling. The expensive lifestyle. Like, he's a country boy.
He's a country boy from Gainesville, Georgia, and you're turning him to fucking champagne wishes and caviar dreams like it's fucking Robin Leach.
Like, that's not him. Like, that gimmick should have been given to Bobby Roode.
We had a taste of that in like 2006 when he was like the most wanted like free agent, and they wanted him to find managers. They brought in Bobby Heenan, God rest his soul. They brought in Sensational Sherry, God rest her soul. And then it wound up going to Tracy Brooks. Like, there was a storyline where you could make Bobby Roode, and then he was feuding with Eric Young, which there was a lot of story and stuff to it. But if that had come on later in 2010 and you broke him away from Storm then at Beer Money, like, it would have fit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's another what if. Brought him back if they would have broken him up a year before they did.
If you had put Ric Flair with Bobby Roode again, it would have worked.
That's so good, man. He was so good, like breaking him away from Team Canada when they did the split in 06. Eric Young with the Don't Fire Eric, Johnny Devine going over with the Dudleys, and A1 Alistair Ralphs going back to Canada. I mean, hey, that was the and Petey Williams, of course. You can, and the Petey Pump. Of course, you can't remember little Petey Pump.
Let's not forget about that infamous promo that he was there for with Scott Steiner. 33 1/3% chance of winning.
It worked so well. It really did. It worked so well, the two. And Rakakon.
Just as an aside, folks.
Yes.
You know about the whole about Cameo and that whole thing.
Yes.
Steiner's on there.
Oh my God. I can't wait.
He is. At least last I knew that he was. And the amount of times that he has had people ask him to recreate that promo. And you know what? He's making bank on it. And you know what? God bless him.
You got it. Or he could just go on and say he's fat, and then everybody will get that. If it's not that promo, they'll just have Scott Steiner say he's fat. That's all you need. That's all you need.
And you know what? Like, I will say this: the Dixie Carter era almost turned into a little bit of Taz, a little bit of Dixie Carter. The Dixie Carter era, I think, was like the golden age of TNA. Like, we talked about WWE, their golden age, 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, it was not the Attitude Era.
I mean, that's a lot of people will debate that, but I agree with you. You had Hulk Hogan, you had the Rock and Wrestling Connection. You had everybody on the forefront. And the Attitude Era was great. It really revolutionized the industry that we know as professional wrestling. But without the golden age of wrestling, I mean, we wouldn't be here talking, you know?
And you know what? She made it work. Like, you know what? If I had the chance to meet Dixie Carter and sit across the room from her, 6 feet of social distancing, of course,
Mm-hmm.
I would just say to her, "Thank you."
Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you, because she was a situation, and in life, we're thrown into situations that oftentimes we can't control. And it's up to you how you respond to a given situation. You can either think, "Oh, poor me," and let it consume you, or you can think, "Okay, this isn't the best situation. I'm not really sure, how I'm going to do this, but to heck with it, I'm going to try." And that's what she did. She did the best she could. She kept the lights on. She got them on Spike TV in a decent time slot.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember right, their time slot was Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. Great time slot.
Hold on. Little trivia for you, Dan. Do you remember what the first match was on the debut edition of Impact on Spike TV?
Not a clue.
It was AJ Styles versus Roderick Strong.
Oh, good old Roddy Strong.
Yeah. What? When he was trying to do some stuff at TNA, this was when Austin Aries first came in, before he was Austin Starr. A Star is Born. Before that whole.
That's another name we don't like to talk about. That name.
No, absolutely not. If Chef was here, he would be calling him a vanilla midget and just absolutely ripping Austin Aries to shreds.
And see, that's one of those things. Like, I look at somebody like an Austin Aries or Petey Williams or whatever. I don't care if they're 4'2" or 7'4".
Yep.
What I look for is, are you able to connect with the crowd? Are you decent in the ring? Do you entertain me? Are you able to do that?
Okay, so I always called him like the CM Punk of TNA, because that's what he reminded me of with how he was acting. And I'm like, we already got CM Punk in WWE in 20.
Except CM Punk isn't a douchebag overall.
No, I mean, has he had some moments in an airport? Absolutely, but Austin Aries is just, all right, the best way I can say it, he's a vegan douchebag. That's what he is. He's a vegan douchebag.
The Christy Hemme incident, for one.
Did you? Okay, I'm going to say this right now. I watched that clip that he did on Chris Van Vliet's show talking about that. That's all I'm going to say. Look at these eyes, folks. Just him trying to defend what happened. And I'm like, bro, your crotch was in her face. Don't try to justify that.
He assaulted her.
And she was like, like, for those who have not seen it, it goes down in lore, and I hated it when he did it. I still hate it now, as again, we've so many years later. This was when he was with Bobby Roode as a tag team. I hated it. I hated it. Fucking hated it.
And I will say, to her credit, Dixie Carter took decisive action.
Oh, she did. And that also goes back to the interview where Austin Aries is like, really? We're going to apologize. We're going to say this stuff on social media. And I'm like, yeah, man. You know what you did.
And, it's obvious to me that somebody like him didn't learn his lesson.
Okay, well, with everything that's going on, not to talk about today's social climate, but what he's done at autograph signings and how he left against John Morrison back in 2018, and just him, like, hardly getting any bookings. Like, he's an MLW. MLW won't touch him. Like, and just the whole thing. Nobody will touch this guy. Nobody wants it. Yeah.
WWE won't even take him back.
And here's the thing. Him and Neville had a great match at WrestleMania. They fucking tore it down. And he was the highlight of that Cruiserweight division with the banana, the whole nine. But he's a fucking prick. And I don't want a fucking prick.
I would rather, honestly, if you were to put him next to, honestly, who I would rather watch more than him, I would rather watch Enzo than him.
Okay, see, now you're stretching it a little. Okay, he can talk, but he can't wrestle. Austin Aries can wrestle, but I hate when he opens his mouth just because he's a douche. Not saying he can't talk, but Enzo is just, yeah. I mean, you're stretching a little bit. I'm just going to say that. You're stretching a little bit.
Maybe it's just, he's a New Yorker, and actually, I think Enzo's from Jersey.
Okay, first and foremost, don't get me started about New Jersey. You really just got to do that, Dan? The fucking New Jersey and New York, man. Fuck Jersey. Fuck them.
Can't drive, said what?
Oh, fuck New Jersey, you son of a bitches.
I know, Chef, I know out there, yeah, I don't agree with me.
Yeah, he knows.
You gotta agree with me.
Chef knows. Us New Yorkers know. But no, going back to the point. Yeah, man, when we were talking about Austin Aries and just that dickhead move that he did, when it comes to the company as a whole and situations like that, she absolutely handled it 100% and did what she needed to do for the company. And I will, yeah.
Even also with that, and we brought it up briefly earlier, the Victory Road incident with Jeff Hardy.
Yep.
She handled that real well. She took him off TV and said, basically, you need help.
You need to fix yourself, Jeff.
And it looks like Jeff's doing good now, hopefully.
I'm praying, man, because he's really gotten his shit together with everything with his kids, with everything just in general. I mean, people will say what they will about Rebby Hardy and all Rebby Hardy. But Rebby Hardy helped Matt Hardy get out of that dark place. He went to rehab and he's been in a good place. Rebby saved that man's life. That I will 100% love and condone her for that, because that's what you need to do. That's a good partner. But goddamn, shut your goddamn mouth. That's all I'll say about Rebby Hardy. Shut your goddamn mouth. Awesome Kong whooped that ass. Remember? Did you remember that? Yeah, so Awesome Kong could say she whipped two people's asses in her TNA run. She beat up Bubba the Love Sponge and she beat up Rebby Sky. That's a tough ass woman right there.
I am a huge Awesome Kong fan.
The knockouts, her and Gail Kim.
She has earned her retirement.
Yep.
The fact that, WWE didn't try to get her to come back. I know she had some personal issues, when she was there after. I'm not going to bring up her personal issues. I have so much respect for that one.
Exactly. We're not going to bring up her personal issues, but yeah, she left because of personal issues.
The fact that they didn't try to get her to come back once, she was in a better place.
Well, she had one appearance. That was the Royal Rumble, and she eliminated Michael Cole. My Dolph Ziggler.
I will say this. Watching anybody beat up Michael Cole,
it's satisfactory.
You know what? And seeing anybody yell at Michael Cole.
Daniel Bryan.
Honestly, I'm not a JBL fan that much anymore, but hearing him just say, "Shut up, Michael."
Michael. Not even Michael. Michael.
Maggle.
Michael.
It sounds like Maggle.
Maggle. Yo, okay. So one other thing I had for Dixie Carter before we close this out, Dan. Dude, did you ever see her? Oh, here's my complaint. My only thing. Vince McMahon, you never see him do like a U-shoot for kayfabe commentaries. I mean, his first like really out of character thing was like the Stone Cold podcast when he was talking about, everything in general at that time.
Actually,
yeah, hit me.
You got to remember
yes.
The interview with Jim Ross after Survivor Series 97. That was a shoot.
Yes.
I don't care. That was a shoot.
Okay, I'm saying not on TV. I'm saying like podcast / kind of form. But yes, Brett screwed Brett. Absolute 100% shoot. But with Dixie Carter doing the U-shoot, have you ever seen her kayfabe commentaries where she was on the U-shoot answering questions from the people?
No.
Oh my God. So for those who've not seen Dixie Carter on U-shoot, she was very cocky. This was 2010. How much will Vince McMahon put up for his company? Like acting she's like the shit. And that was the only thing that I was kind of like critical about. The best part was Jim Cornette comes in with a question and he's like, Dixie, why won't you fire Vince Russo? And I laughed my ass off because I remember when they were chanting Fire Russo at that Abyss and Sting last night's match, and he hates Vince Russo. It's well known. It's documented. He hates Vince Russo so much.
They hate each other.
They hate each other. And he asked her on the U-shoot, why won't you fire Vince Russo? It's the best part of the goddamn thing. That's the best part. It's the best part. Oh, go out of your way. It's like 11 years old, but it's still hilarious till this day.
And honestly, that's got to be one of the greatest rivalries in professional wrestling. That doesn't involve actual wrestlers.
No, but
actually, I was wrong.
Cornette.
It involves a former WCW World Champion.
Oh God, stop it! No. Were you in the house?
I went there.
Were you in the house that night? Because that when he won the title, bro, that was in Nassau Coliseum. Beating Booker T in the cage. Goldberg speared him through the cage. Were you there at the Coliseum that night for that?
And maybe I'm wrong, but I wasn't. I remember watching it on Nitro. If I remember right.
Yes.
Because I know in the movie you had to basically climb up, get the belt.
Yeah, for Ready to Rumble. Yep, that was the triple cage.
But in the match, and once it was on TV, didn't you have to bring it back into the cage, get down to the first cage, and then out the door?
Yes, but yeah, that was a different match though. The match with Vinny Rue and Booker T was just a cage, and that was the infamous "What's going on?" because Goldberg speared him through the cage, and then does this mean Vince Russo won the title? And he was the champ for like 2 days.
Yeah, so technically, back then that's when they were putting the title on freaking everybody.
Well, Vince was the champ, but I mean, it's Vince McMahon. I'll still prefer Do-Rag Vince any day, just because it's hilarious.
They put the belt on Arquette. They put the belt on Russo. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. They should have put it on Tony Schiavone.
They got us again, Schiavone.
Give Schiavone a title run.
Okay, if fucking Ed Ferrara, Oklahoma, can win the Cruiserweight title, I mean, hey.
Didn't he win the women's title? Oh, no, that was Harvey Whippleman.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, before we close this out, folks, this is us. We love wrestling all over the place. It's an adrenaline rush from start to finish. Dixie Carter, we love you. You and your sarsaparillas, honey, doing your thing for what you've done for Impact Wrestling.
Bless your heart.
Bless her heart. But no, she's absolutely one of the best. And I'll say this, I know she's had some problems, and I know people will say, but she brought us some of the great talents as well with Jeff Jarrett. That time period will never, ever go away. It's the golden age of Impact Wrestling. It's TNA, baby.
You can't celebrate Impact without celebrating I would say, the great Dixie Carter. She, to me, Impact Wrestling, is like the little engine that could. It's still going. After 20 years, pretty sure Impact Wrestling has lasted longer than ECW ever did.
Okay, so ECW went, well, it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. When they first started, like, ECW, that was only for fucking, oh my God,
10 years.
9-10 years. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It lasted longer than ECW. Oh, man.
But you know what? To Dixie Carter, thank you. You did what life's all about. You tried.
You did.
You showed up. You tried. And you know what? You're going to go down in wrestling history.
She is. And as much...
I will look at her run with Impact more fondly than the reign of David Arquette as WCW champion.
Amen to that, dude. And as much as I love to say it, and as much as I will, TNA, Impact, all in one. It's an amazing company, and this is an amazing time to be a professional wrestling fan, like we say each and every time on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, this has been another edition of the Adrenaline Rush podcast. For Daniel Cremens, my name is Mike Larkin. We'll talk to you next episode, guys.